Nice to have you with us. Later on, during the 10 o'clock hour, Specialist Lieutenant Kim Vetter from the Michigan State Police will be with us the first portion of the hour to talk about traffic safety and all that good stuff. And then in the second portion of the 10 o'clock hour, around 9:35, we will learn about Michigan Rock Center for Youth Development. At 11 o'clock, the SVRC Marketplace and the Farmers Market will be the subject of focus this morning. But for this hour, we're going to spend time talking about what I think is one of the great institutions of this area that adds to our lifestyle and the wonderful lifestyle that we have here in the Great Lakes Bay region. And that is the Castle Museum. The Castle Museum of History is a fabulous, fabulous institution, but they are located at a place where lots happening coming up very soon. And that is Jefferson, because coming up is Jazz on Jefferson. And actually, when I say coming up, it's like a week, something like that. With us, a couple of guests this morning. First of all, the director of the museum. We say hello to John Webb.
Good morning, Art.
Good morning. And with us is the vice president, if you will, and the head curator and all of that stuff, the man with the knowledge and the history, Tom Trombley.
Morning, Art.
Good morning, Tom. Good to see you. So, Jazz on Jefferson, how many years now? Do we know? Well, you would know. I know you
no,
know.
I really don't, because we lost 2 years to the pandemic, and then last year we didn't have a street for Jazz on Jefferson.
Right.
So you really can't have Jazz on Jefferson without the street. So it's about 18, we think, and we still can do it on our thumbs and toes, but we have to we have to come up with different calculations. So I think we'll be celebrating a major event in a couple of years.
How do you know, Tom? You were around. How did it start?
It was when I was with Neighborhood Renewal Services. We had a committee, the South Jefferson Avenue Improvement
Right.
Committee, and we were charged with finding something to showcase and to really bring attention to Jefferson Avenue. We could come up with any idea we came up with. We came up with the idea of a festival, and we came up with the idea of focusing on jazz, but we take, as you know, from the lead acts, a very loose interpretation and broad interpretation of jazz, but we always have a great time. And it's not really a street festival, it's a celebration of place. And it's really been going on for all of those years. Of course, one of the founders of the event was Les Tinknell, the architect from Saginaw, who passed away a little over a year ago, and this year's event is held in his memory.
Ah, excellent. I have to ask a question about the renewal of Jefferson, because that was what you did before you got to the museum. Is Jefferson different today than it was, say, 20 years ago?
It is. There's always changes. There's always growth, but the lawns are all mowed. Everything is really almost every building has ownership. Some are in various processes of restoration, but it is very different. And it continues. This event will be similar to other ones, but it'll be very different as well. So it's just 3 hours to really come down, explore, and experience a very walkable street.
And it's free.
It is free except for the food.
Except for the food, yeah, it's free.
So that you can control by how much you want to eat.
So, John, let's talk about the museum's involvement.
Yeah.
Jazz on Jefferson.
Well, we're an anchor. Tom is a member of the committee, so he represents the Castle Museum there. We're certainly one of the major sponsors and hosts of events that are happening. And it's really nice. If I could just go back to, you were asking Tom about Jefferson Street, and the former Jacobson's building, which is right across the street from us. We own a corner of that,
Right.
and that's where we, house the
Do you
majority.
own it or lease it?
We own it.
You own it.
Yes.
You bought a part of the building.
We do. Yeah.
It was a separate building originally.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that was the original.
Corner.
Yeah, the original corner. So the first
They built around it?
they did.
In a building they never owned.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah. So that's a whole story. You could do a whole show on that.
that.
Or not kidding, but
We'll come back to that later.
yeah. So obviously our collection is housed there. So that's a very important piece of property to us. But what I was getting at was it's so nice to see that building being renewed and put to use. And
do we know what that use is going to be?
well, actually, it's already in use. A company, and I honestly don't recall the name of that company.
Backer.
Okay, yeah, Tom can tell you that, but they've purchased it, and it's a functioning warehouse and a distribution center right now, and more than half of it has already completely been renovated and done. And there's a small part in between us and that area that's being prepared to be used for the same purpose. So it's just really nice. It's now open.
Oh, yes. Occupancy is always good.
Safe, lit. So it's really been a positive for us. So that's that in itself. And to see other things like that happening in that area is really very exciting.
Okay, so Jazz on Jefferson on June 4th. What time does it start?
4:45. We do not have a drum line this year, but we may have some surprises. So we have a soft opening at 4:45. It starts at 5 o'clock officially. That's when food service starts. As people know, there's no designated parking. You park where you can in the city and walk in. We have a new street, which means if you're using a chair, it's much more, the street and the sidewalks are much smoother. So you can help dedicate the new street. We're not requiring people to wipe their feet before they come into the area, but it is a new street. We have long-standing traditions, and we'll have new things as well.
Well, to me, the longest standing tradition, and correct me if I'm wrong, the strawberry shortcake has got to top the list.
It is. It wasn't there the first year, but I think it was the second or third year. So it has been a long-standing tradition.
A good one.
It is.
Oh, it's a good one.
And our debate this year, Art, was traditional strawberry shortcake does not include ice cream, but ours always has.
Yeah.
So do we do it with the ice cream or without?
You better.
We are. Well, I guess we made the right choice. We debated that, and we said, we're going to keep doing it the way we've been doing it because it seems pretty popular. So.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
We were going to call a certain recipe column, but we realized we couldn't do that.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about the music, because there's always a headliner in the church. And
that is Vortex at 8 o'clock, and that is free, underwritten by our sponsors, which include Sagna DDA, an outreach grant through the Community Enrichment Commission. We're part of Sagna Celebrate Summer. And, of course, each of the sponsoring organizations for Jazz in Jefferson takes care of what happens at their event. And most of the musical groups are volunteer or funded by the group. So we're by the sponsoring organization. So it's really the generosity of a lot of people, and people are always astounded what a small budget we operate on for the event.
which is why you can do it for free.
That is right.
And I think we'll have the Scott Tuttle.
We'll have Scott Tuttle on the back dock. We have each of the Saginaw Choral Society in our lobby. We have Sassy and the Saginaw Eddie Band on the front porch of Hoyt Library. Kingdom Life Ministries has groups. Lavelle Jackson will be, and Robert Lee Review. That we have Major Chords for Minors, and we have the Sugar Beats. The Saginaw Sugar Beats Blues Band. And I may have left something out, and there may be some things that surprise us. But
Saginaw Brass.
Yes, Saginaw Brass, thank you. So we have, it's a full lineup, and you are not required to attend each thing. Don't complain if you can't do everything, because there's more than you can do in one evening. You will be exhausted if you try.
And basically it runs from what street to what
street?
street?
It runs from Jefferson Avenue, from Federal Avenue down to the Cathedral. We close off Jefferson to Thompson and you enter the St. Mary of the Assumption Cathedral through the back.
And they're going to be doing tours in the cathedral.
Tours of the cathedral.
And I don't care what religion you are. It is a gorgeous building. It's worth going in just to tour it.
It certainly is. And we will have a few volunteer guides on the street that will have distinctive name badges that will be available between 6 and 7 to answer architectural questions. We're focusing on the people who designed the buildings on the street. So it's really not just a chance to explore, but to explore ways to learn things.
And will the museum be open?
It sure will. So, you were talking about the beauty of the cathedral, and then you bookend that on the other end with the beauty of the Castle Museum.
Absolutely.
And it's pretty it's a pretty incredible
Absolutely.
pair of buildings, that you have the opportunity to go through in a single day and walkable from each other.
For free.
And you add in between there, you have First Congregational Church, Kingdom Life Ministries. Those will be open, and those are buildings from the 1860s. And we even have an Alden B. Dow building thrown in there too. So it's wonderful.
More on that coming up. We're going to take a break, and then we will be back with our guests from the Castle Museum in Saginaw.
Be the hero of your office.
All right, we're back with you here on the Art Lewis Show. In studio with me is some folks from the Castle Museum, the Saginaw County Historical Society. And that is John Webb, who is the director, Tom Trombley, who is the vice director or vice president, if you will, and the chief curator. Let's talk, John, about the museum and some of the exhibits going on there now and what's ahead. So let's start with what's in there right now.
Well, we just finished
Of course.
a fantastic exhibit. Yeah, that was called I Am a Man, and that was a traveling exhibit.
Heard about that.
Yeah, it was a series of 40-plus photographs chronicling the civil rights movement in the South in the 1960s. Incredibly powerful. Anybody that I think saw that would share that sentiment, and so we were really pleased to be able to bring that in. We are now in our changeover phase to our next exhibit, which is going to be about the courthouses here in Saginaw County. So,
Really?
Obviously we are the museum for county history, and the courthouse has played a pretty significant role in that. And so it's called Order in the Court. It's the legacy of Saginaw County courthouses. So we're in the changeover phase, constructing that, and that's one that we do ourselves.
These are main gallery exhibits?
Correct. That's going to be in Centennial Hall, which is our major temporary exhibit gallery, and that'll be open in June. And so we're really excited about that, and should be, again, a very fascinating look at not only the obvious reasons that you have a courthouse, but there are a lot of other things that happen there as well.
I should point out that Centennial Gallery many years ago was brought up to Smithsonian standards.
Correct.
In terms of humidity, temperature control, all that stuff, so that you could bring in Smithsonian exhibits.
Correct.
Any in the future? I know they're not cheap.
We don't have any specific Smithsonian exhibits in the near future at this point. We have hosted them recently, but it has to be something that makes sense for us.
Right.
Not only subject-wise, but obviously cost-wise as well. So, with a museum of our size, we do have some limitations on what we can host. But space-wise, and as far as the ability of the space to host that kind of exhibit, we do have that, which is wonderful.
And actually, the same requirements that the Smithsonian standards are the ones that were required for I Am a Man, and it also allows us to really safely exhibit our collection in a way, in the way we need to.
It brought the museum into modern standards, right?
Absolutely, and we continue to upgrade it as we go. We just put new.
Window treatment.
Yeah, window treatments in that room because it has huge windows all along the one wall, and we have to be very conscious of the amount of light and the type of light rays that are allowed into that space, in addition to the humidity and temperature. So we just upgraded that, and we're constantly doing what we can to keep that.
Tom, I want to take you back not too far, but there was, I would call it for lack of anything else, a dig at the site of the old fires, and I remember seeing all that stuff laying out on tables and everything. Are we done cataloging it, going through it, and
Our archaeological team has indeed cataloged it. We have a permanent exhibit on, and we continue. We have programs based on it, so it continues to be a resource that we use and accessible for researchers and for ourselves. So go down in the lower level of the museum. We don't have a basement. We have a lower level. We have a lower level, and we have a really, I think, a very poignant exhibit. And it's something that if you just talked about people losing only escaping with the clothes on their back, this brings that home. And then when you see things that are melted in the newspaper accounts describing people going through the wreckage, finding glass melted into grotesque forms, that it really connects you with that 3-hour tragedy in a way that reading about it alone would not.
A lot of times these things are done to tell the story and find out about the story. From it, did you learn anything? Any myths that were dispelled? Or
yes, one of the things that reinforced something we already knew, but the idea that Saginaw, there was this mythology that Saginaw the community leaders refused all outside help, and the city immediately rebuilt. Well, from the work our archaeological team did, the thing that became very apparent is that some of the homes were rebuilt adjoining to this. We can document, but where this site was on the corner of Howard and South Jefferson, there was just a pit there that people used as a refuse pit for several years, and that really reflects the fact that only about 60% of the homes were rebuilt in the first couple years, that it would take over a decade for the area to be completely rebuilt.
Did you find any refuse that survived?
Yeah, our team did. And part of it was those things. There were a couple of items that clearly post-dated what had been found, post-dated the fire, and those were in those upper layers. And so it was just kind of this slowly filling pit, which is really kind of brings home what it means for a city that's losing population to have 250 some housing units destroyed. That people found, the state in Saginaw really found other places to move.
And that's, it's interesting too. Was a cause ever determined?
It started, the generally accepted theory is that it started from a spark from a adjoining sawmill falling in an abandoned sawmill.
And that's the generally
accepted
theory.
And archaeology isn't going to prove that.
No. All right, we're going to take a break, come back. We're talking to John Webb and Tom Trombley from the Castle Museum in Saginaw. Let me take a moment to talk about McDonald Ford, and can't talk about an auto dealership these days without talking about tariffs. But McDonald Ford was ahead of the game. They saw it coming. And with the uncertainty, they decided to stock their lot with tariff-free vehicles, and they have many more en route. And not only are they tariff-free, but at the same time, Ford decided to offer employee pricing for everyone. That means you pay the same price as Ford employees. In addition, Chrysler and import buyers considering a Ford, you'll receive the lowest price offered. Chevy truck buyers can now get a truck like the Ford F-150, the best-selling pickup in America, at employee pricing. So you see, now's the right time to visit McDonald Ford M47 in Freeland for the best selection and the lowest possible price. Don't let tariffs prevent you from getting the vehicle of your choice at a price you can afford. Visit McDonald Ford in Freeland today. Remember, tariff-free and employee pricing for everyone. And by the way, Ford has announced an extension of the employee pricing through July 6th.
We're proud to make
Outdoor Show in studio with me, John Webb, Tom Trombley from the Castle Museum, downtown Saginaw. We were just talking during the break about the cycle car in the lobby of the museum. It's a one of. Nothing else. There's nothing like it, is there? It's the only one of its kind.
Correct.
That you know.
That we're aware of.
That we're aware of.
I think there were, 3 dozen built, max?
About our information, there's about 35 that were built, constructed, and there may be another one, and there are parts around, but we know it's the only one we can document.
And when were they built? What year?
1914.
1914
is when ours is. I think they introduced it a little before and maybe went a little bit beyond 1914 for a few months, but it's just that 1 year.
Built in Saginaw.
Built in Saginaw.
And the one thing about yours, when you got it, it ran.
It was used in parades up until pretty close to when we acquired it, and we have run it since, once for its centennial.
And never again?
Yeah.
Never is the big word.
Never say never.
Never say never, but it would would take a lot of agonizing decision making.
Yeah.
Mainly just to protect it.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
I mean,
we
can't take a chance with something.
Well, it's a gorgeous car. Yeah. It sits right there. And
yeah.
It's that history of Saginaw wrapped up in one machine.
It really is.
So I want to go downstairs to the lower level again. What are the other permanent exhibits down there?
Well, I was going to actually, I'm glad we went to this, because I think the most significant change and work that we have done in the permanent exhibits at the museum is on that lower level. You may remember for many, many years there was a model train down there, and that was kind of the focus of the basement. So that has completely altered at this point. We took some, quite honestly, scary dark spaces that nobody really wanted to walk through and converted them into really informative and, I think, well-done galleries, going all the way back to the earliest days of this area. So the first exhibit, when you get down there in the base, in the lower level, is called Our Foundations, and so that goes back to indigenous peoples and their and what the flora and fauna of this area consisted of.
That's been down there a while.
2018.
Yeah.
28.
Yeah. So that was yep. So that's been there about. I guess we're on year 7 with that now. We have the everyday life of the Anishinaabe, which is connected to that. Then that goes into lumbering, and then we talk about the evolution of the county and the forming of Saginaw County and the communities within it, and then we get into kind of the economic driving forces of the county, which were initially lumbering. It ran its course fairly quickly. The next big thing that everyone thought was going to be the next lumbering was coal mining. Which I find fascinating. I didn't know until I'd lived here for some time and was working at the Castle Museum that there is a coal mining history in Saginaw County.
It's funny because I don't know why, but when I got here in 1974, one of the first things I heard about was a mine in St. Charles.
Yes.
And I went, oh, really?
Yeah. Well, and many people today, if you're trying to just explain where things are, many people are familiar with Hartley Nature Center.
Yeah.
That is the location of one of the larger coal mining facilities that was.
Are any of those mines accessible today that you know
No.
of?
Not
They're
really.
now closed off.
They were barely accessible when they were used, which is one of the reasons it
Yeah.
didn't really work that well. Anyway, so that's we touch on that, and then you get into the more recent economic driving forces, which was manufacturing and automobiles, and we work our way through that.
And you had, as part of that exhibit, if I remember right, World War II and what the auto industry converted to.
Correct. Yeah. So arms and ammunition manufacturing.
Amazing what was produced out of here.
Unreal. And the efficiencies that were achieved, and the ability to provide that. Talk about the arsenal of democracy. That was right here in Saginaw County, and so.
And now one of the things we're doing is reworking those portions of those exhibits to really more fully tell the story in light of the people who actually produced the items and the diversity and people who came here for during the Great Migration to work in the foundries. And so we're really telling a more people-based story in some reworking portions of the galleries.
Any museum worth salt, you have to continually freshen and update, don't you?
And we never have permanent exhibits. We have some things that will all, like the cycle
transitional.
car, Meyer Brothers Jewelry Store, that will always be on exhibit. But how we interpret them, how we position them, and how we tell the story, that constantly changes.
And as Tom, that's actually the most recent thing that we've done, which probably you haven't even seen yet,
I haven't.
And is a transition space. I would say, when we've got done with that lumbering coal mining era, that it features the Great Migration and talks about the Black and Latino communities and the impact that they have had on this community and when they arrived and all those kind of things.
Well, you can't tell the story of this region without telling that story.
Right. And so what we are constantly doing is looking at the stories that we're telling and making sure that we're telling all the stories, not just some of the stories.
The thing that always got me about it, too, one of my favorite spaces there is you walk in, if you walk straight down that aisle, there are, I don't know what I would call them, display spaces, compartments, where there are different exhibits that rotate around. And I remember the year we had our Listen to the Misses exhibit there. It was supposed to last a few months. It was up for a year and a half, I think, or so.
We loved that exhibit.
And we have one there right now that's the same thing. We intended to run it for a short period of time. It's about Sonny Stitt. Which kind of ties in nicely with Jazz on Jefferson. But that's been so popular with people, that we've kept it up longer than we initially intended.
All right, we're going to take a break, come back, and then we're going to return to Jazz on Jefferson with our guests from the Castle Museum.
Every great story begins with
Back with you in studio, John Webb, Tom Trombley from the Castle Museum, Saginaw Historical Society, or the Historical Society of Saginaw, is correct?
The Historical Society of Saginaw County.
So,
County is
Saginaw
very
County.
important, because we tell the stories of the entire county, not just Saginaw.
So let's talk about the summer. What's going on? You got summer programming coming up?
Got all kinds of stuff going on. Sometimes people have the idea that museums are stuffy and stodgy and boring and but we actually have quite a lot of things that we're offering this summer for kids that we think they'll find very interesting. Kicking right off, obviously we have the Jazz on Jefferson, which I know we're going to touch on again before we end here, but in the month of June we're collaborating with a lot of other people in the area to provide some really cool activities for kids. We have our normal preschool story times that we do every month, but there's a summer kickoff with in collaboration with Delta College Learning Channel and Saginaw Public Library. That's on June 7th, and that includes the Touch a Truck, which I think maybe you may or may not be involved with that. Yep. And then June 11th, we have Bears, Beavers, and Bats, Oh My, in collaboration with the Chippewa Nature Center. We're working with Bay City State Park Visitor Center to provide an animal encounters in the Saginaw Valley on June 18th. And then this is a fun one, which you wouldn't expect. The Saginaw County Mosquito Control is going to come to the museum and put on a program called What's the Buzz on Mosquitoes, and that's June 26th. We have several more things throughout July and August that are scheduled right now, and you can find all that information on our website, which is castlemuseum.org. And just look under events, and there's a whole category of children's things that are out there.
And what's your next major exhibit?
It's going to be the one on the courthouse. So
on the courthouse.
Yep. So that we talked about earlier, and so that I don't have an exact date for that, but we're in the midst of getting that gallery set up for that right now.
All right, Jazz on Jefferson comes back on the 4th, which is a week from today, but it takes a lot of collaboration to do that, doesn't it?
It sure does. The museum is one of the hosts. The Public Libraries of Saginaw, Kingdom Life Ministries, Team One, Positive Results in Downtown Saginaw,
Pride.
First Congregational Church, Team One Credit Union, which I think I said already, Cathedral of Mary of the Assumption. And if I've left anyone out of that, I apologize.
HSC?
Pardon?
HSC is on the post.
Yeah, well, they're a sponsor of Saginaw Celebrate Summer.
Exactly.
And so we're part of Saginaw Celebrate Summer. And when we received grants from the Saginaw Arts and Enrichment Commission through an outreach grant and the Saginaw DDA, and everybody works together to really make this a free event, which is really a chance to explore the street and take in music